Welcome back. My name is Madalena.
My name is Sarah.
This is the fourth video in a series about chronic pain management. In this video, we'll be looking at strategies for managing pain in our day-to-day lives, specifically looking at the relationship between pain and movement.
This is a model called the 3 M's of pain management. It organizes pain management approaches into 3 broad categories: movement, medication, and the mind. In this series, we'll be covering 2 of the 3 M's, movement and mind. The third, medication, may be an important part of your pain management plan, but because it's not within our scope of practice as student occupational therapists, we will not be addressing it as part of this series. However, research does show that a combination of these 3 strategies is most effective for pain management. In this video, we'll be covering the relationship between pain and movement. We first want to familiarize ourselves with how we respond to pain. For most people, pain sensations naturally fluctuate throughout the day. Like we discussed in a previous video, there are many things that contribute to this fluctuation, but one of the primary factors is movement. For example, you may wake up feeling great, with little or no pain, and so you start to work in the garden. You feel your pain flaring and think, "Oh no, I've overdone it," and so you go inside and lie down to rest. After lying down for about an hour, you start to feel better, and so you think, maybe I'll do something a little less strenuous. Instead of going back to the garden, you head into the kitchen to bake some cookies. After standing up for some time though, you notice your pain flare again, and so you decide to rest again, as this helped you feel better earlier. Perhaps when you feel better, you'll try another activity. And this is the cycle of overdoing and over-resting, and it's really common for people who experience persistent pain. This cycle is illustrated by the graph on screen, and it leads to a strong association between activity and pain. And this association often leads to avoidance of activities that we want and need to do. Rest and avoidance can then become our dominant pain management strategy, which reinforces this connection between pain and movement. And as we discussed in our video on pain science, this connection is then strengthened in the brain, making it more likely that you'll use rest again as a strategy. Does any of this sound familiar to you?
An activity log is one way to track and learn more about our own patterns of activity and rest. Tracking your patterns is useful for a few reasons. For one thing, looking at your day as a whole can help you see where and how you're succeeding in pain management. You'll notice strategies that work and learn more about your time management skills. An activity log can also help you identify those factors that influence your pain. Remember that the things you do throughout the day and where you go have an impact. Importantly, an activity log shows us where we might build in breaks so we can rest preemptively. Building in those breaks may also help us engage in the activities we want and need to do. If you'd like, you can pause the video here to grab some paper and a pen and take some time to make your own activity log. Maybe jotting down what your day has looked like so far, or if it's still early, you can write down yesterday's activities, or maybe just your typical routine on another day. You might also note down what prompted or motivated you to switch activities, whether it was pain or something else, and then take a moment to reflect on what you've learned about your activity patterns. In completing the activity log, you might have noticed your own cycle of overdoing and overresting, or some connection between pain sensations and movement. Taking breaks and resting is an important strategy for both our body and mind. Getting a good amount of sleep, for example, helps us replenish energy levels and prepare for the following day. But movement is equally important. Research shows that exercise and activity engagement helps to reduce the severity of chronic pain and improves overall physical and mental health. When we don't move for long periods of time, our bodies become stiffer, our muscles weaken, and this makes it more difficult for us to start moving again. But we also don't want to rush into movement either. The idea is to start slow, with the goal of incorporating movement into our daily lives at a level and pace that feels comfortable and safe. One way to do this is through energy conservation. This involves becoming more aware of our own energy expenditure and planning breaks and activities accordingly. This is helpful for managing pain because pain often makes us feel tired, and vice versa, feeling tired can also increase pain. You can use your activity log to glean some insight into when you have the most energy throughout the day, and also when you have the least. With this information, you can begin to prioritize your tasks, asking yourself what needs to be done today and what can be put off until tomorrow. Of the tasks you must complete in a single day, is there one that is particularly important? And so on. With that information, you can plan your day accordingly. Another thing you might try is conserving energy through posture. Sitting down, for example, requires a lot less energy than standing, which leads us to our next strategy. Modifying the way you do your activities is another effective strategy for pain management. In addition to completing tasks while seated, pay attention to how you sit or stand. The more you're able to maintain an upright position, the easier it is for your body to get oxygen into your lungs and to circulate it throughout your body. Even before you start a task, there are a few things you can do to set yourself up for success. Try gathering any items you need before you get started, and make sure you have them within reach. If you know you'll need help with certain parts of the task, it's a good idea to ask for help beforehand. Wherever possible, use equipment to lighten the load. For example, you might use a wagon to transport a heavy box of gardening tools from your shed, instead of carrying the box.
Pacing is another way to approach pain management. The aim of pacing is to maintain a fairly even activity level throughout the day, as opposed to fluctuating between low and high levels of activity. When we engage in the cycle of overdoing and over-resting, our activity levels depend largely on our pain, which means we engage in or stop activities based on our pain symptoms. Pacing, on the other hand, helps us engage in things we want and need to do by making these activities time or quota dependent instead. This involves consciously planning to engage in an activity for a certain amount of time, for example, and then taking a planned rest. By engaging in activities in this way, we can start to unlearn the association between pain and movement, and slowly begin to increase our overall level of activity. This strategy can be used for one isolated task, like walking the dog, but it's also a broad approach that can be applied in the overall scheduling of your life. First, we'll discuss using pacing for one task. Using the example of walking the dog, we'll go through pacing step by step. To start, you need to know your baseline. This is the level of activity that you can easily manage. It's important to start at a safe and manageable level, so be honest with yourself about where you're at. For this example, let's say that you're currently able to walk the dog for an average of 10 minutes per day. Reduce this number by about 20% to 8 minutes. And this will give you a little bit of a buffer. So this is your baseline or starting point for week 1. Now you'll need to set a goal. Goals should be specific, measurable, realistic, and time sensitive, and also not dependent on your pain sensation or intensity. For this example, you might set a goal to increase the time that you spend walking your dog. A good and safe rule is to set increases at 10% per week. It's important that these increases are small so that we don't do more than what our bodies are capable of. Instead, we work to slowly increase our capacity over time. In our example, where your baseline is 8 minutes per day of walking, your increase of 10% would be about 1 minute. So you should aim to increase this time each week. The goal is therefore, I will increase the time I spend walking my dog daily by 10% or 1 minute each week. Once you've set a goal, make a plan for how you'll carry it out. This plan could include any of the activity modification or energy conservation strategies that we've discussed so far. The idea is to bring this task to the level or just above the level that you're comfortable with, and to try and maintain a relatively steady level of activity while doing it, avoiding pushing too hard and over-resting. Now you're ready to try out your plan. For the first week, engage in this activity at your baseline. That is, walk the dog for 8 minutes per day. Then, begin to gradually increase your walking time by 10% per week, or about a minute. For week 2, that means that you would be walking the dog for 9 minutes per day. Make sure you're constantly monitoring your progress. Reflect on how things are going and adjust your goal and your plan as needed. Pacing can be useful when thinking about doing one single task, like we just talked about, but you can also use these principles when thinking about how to best plan your day or week. To use pacing strategies in this way, the first step is to prioritize the tasks you'll want and need to do. Then, consider how to best organize and spread out your schedule so that you aren't doing the most energy-intensive and effortful tasks back to back. And this is where your activity log might be useful again, as it allows you to view your day or your week more broadly. Try to alternate between doing easier and more difficult tasks, and to build in breaks. If there's a specific task or set of tasks that you're most worried about being able to complete, you can break down that specific task using the steps we just discussed. Then try it out, and like before, monitor your progress. You can always change your plan if something isn't working. We're going to end this video with a guided, gentle movement practice. For this mindful minute, you'll need a place to comfortably sit or lie down. And if you'd like to do the practice on the floor, take a moment now to set up your space with a mat or blanket. As you'll see in the video, Madalena and I will demonstrate different variations of postures. At one point, she will lie down on her mat and you can join her there, but you may choose to remain seated instead. Do what feels right in the moment. I will guide you through both options. Always go at your own pace. You can pause the video at any time, trying out different variations, and always feel free to spend as much time as you need in each posture. Especially as we get to the end of practice, you can remain in our final resting shape for as long as you like.
So we're going to start with a gentle side bend. Find a comfortable seat, either cross-legged or you might sit on your shins. If you have a block or a meditation cushion at home, that could be helpful underneath the hips. You could also do these movements in a chair. Place your left hand down on the floor beside you. Spread your fingers nice and wide. Take an inhale, lift your right arm up to the ceiling, and then exhale, bend your left elbow softly and side bend to the left. So you're reaching through your right side body, softening your right shoulder, just coming up and over with your right arm. Find a breath in to come back through center, and we'll switch. Right hand down to the floor, left arm up to the ceiling, breathe in. Exhale, up and over to your right. You might bend your right elbow here and lean a little bit of weight into your right hand. And try to feel the floor between both sit bones. So you're not coming up so much that the left side body is lifted off the floor. Spread the fingers of both hands. Soften your left shoulder. Come back through center and place your left hand down beside you. Bring your hands to your knees, and you want to be able to grip the knees a little bit here. Again, find a comfortable but tall seat. As you take an inhale, start to lift the chest up towards the ceiling and arch your back just gently. Exhale to round. So go the other way. Maybe the shoulders shrug up a little bit. Hold on to your knees and tuck your chin. Stay with your breath. Inhale, start to pull on your knees, lift the chest forward and through. Exhale to round your spine, draw your belly in, tuck your chin. One more time. Inhale, come forward and through. Exhale to round. And inhale to make your way back to neutral spine, sitting up nice and tall. Exhale, relax your shoulders. Maddie's going to lie down on her mat, and I'm going to stay seated, and we're going to do a gentle hip stretch. So I'll instruct Madalena first. So if you're lying on your back, bend your knees, place your feet flat on the floor, cross your right ankle over your left thigh, and then place your right hand on your right thigh. And if you want a little bit more sensation, you can gently press the thigh away from the body, and if you need a little bit less, you don't have to do that. If you're staying seated like I am, extend your left leg long and place your right ankle onto your left thigh. Hands can come beside you for support. I like to tent my fingers and then press into the finger pads to sit up a little taller. You might stay here if this is enough sensation in the right thigh, great. If you need a little bit more, start to hinge at the hips and bring your chest towards the floor. Pausing just to breathe deeply. Noticing any sensations as they arise.
soften some of the edges of your awareness and your movement. If you're lying on your back, just bring your right foot to the floor. If you're seated and you are bent at the waist, sit up nice and tall, extend your right leg long. If you're on your back like Madalena, other side, left ankle up over to your right thigh. And if you're seated like I am, same thing, left ankle to your right thigh. Hands come just beside you, and you might sit up nice and tall, hinge at the hips, come forward if you'd like a little bit more sensation. And choose your own adventure, so you can come down as far as you like, you can stay up a little taller. If you're lying on your back, use your left hand to play with sensation and intensity. So you might gently press the left thigh away from your body, you might not. And again, pausing here to breathe deeply. Just opening your awareness to sensations without necessarily trying to chase them more or less. If you're lying on your back, place your left foot on the floor. And if you're seated, then also place your left foot on the floor. I'll guide you if you're laying down first into a gentle twist. So take your arms out beside you. You can bend the elbows if that's comfier. And then send your knees to the left side of your mat. So you're twisting to the left. And if you're seated, recross your ankles here. Bring your right hand behind you. And maybe your left hand in front or left hand to the right knee. And then twist to your right. So if you're lying down versus seated, we're twisting in opposite directions, it seems. And that's okay. If you're lying down like Madalena, you might turn your gaze over your right shoulder and soften through your upper body. Let your belly be nice and soft. If you're seated like I am, think about sitting up a little bit taller and twisting through the belly. Let's come back through center together. If you're lying on the floor, you might adjust your hips a little bit, find neutral, and then send your knees to the right side of your mat. Again, arms are just wide or elbows bent. You might turn your gaze over the left shoulder on this side. If you're seated, let's sit up nice and tall. Bring your left hand behind you like a little kickstand. Right hand can come either to the floor or your right ankle, or all the way over to your left knee or thigh. And then take a deep breath and sit up nice and tall. Exhale to twist through your belly. And then make your way back to center. If you're seated, just pause here, hands to your thighs. If you're lying on your back, you might take Shavasana, or a resting shape, extending your legs out long to the corners of your mat, or if you're not on the mat, just out onto the floor. Arms beside you, palms up to the ceiling, this nice open posture, receiving. If you're seated, you might just pause here. Let's end with a deep breath in through the nose. And release out of your mouth. You're welcome to stay here in rest as long as you like.
In this video, we introduced the 3M model of pain management and explored various strategies to help us engage in the activities we want and need to do, including energy conservation, activity modification, and pacing. Hopefully, you've started to create an activity log that can help you to identify where you're spending your time and energy, but also where you might be able to build in planned rest. In the next video, we'll be addressing one of the other M's in the 3M model, the mind, delving back into mindfulness practice and learning more about how to understand, relate to, and manage our pain from this perspective.